everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and well. First and foremost, thank you to everybody who joined myself and Sam on the live stream. We'll be doing it all again tomorrow for the NJPW / Ring of Honor G1 Supercard. But right now, it's time to talk about what happened at NXT TakeOver New York. So first and foremost, let's take a look at the general sort of overall feel of the show. Beforehand, many people were saying this could be the best NXT TakeOver of all time. Was it? For me, no. But does that mean it wasn't a very good show? No, it does not mean that, because it was a very good show, despite not being the best TakeOver of all time. NXT have set a ridiculous bar for themselves to live up to. And the problem is, when you put on an almost excellent, perfect show like this one, which was still in the very upper reaches of how good a show can be, it kind of will disappoint some people. And I think to those people, your expectations are too high. Just lower them slightly. It can't all be New Orleans. But at the same time, this was well worth a show checking out, and I have no doubt that by the end of the year, it will well be in contention for Show of the Year. Great stuff through and through. And not every result went the way that we might have expected it to as well. So let's start off with the opening match, the tag team title match between the War Raiders, the reigning champs, and the Dusty Rhodes Classic winners, Ricochet and Aleister Black, who of course seem to be departing for pastures new. They're already pretty much main roster superstars. So the question was, would NXT allow them to win the tag titles and carry those into WrestleMania 35? This was the perfect choice for an opener, to be honest. Fast, frantic, really well paced, a lot of high spots, a lot of exciting action, a lot of quick strike exchanges and that sort of thing. And to be honest, I think it was one of the stronger matches on the show. It was a really good start, and everyone really went all out to impress. There were a lot of double team moves, a lot of double team action, with both teams working really well together in conjunction in their own sort of distinctive styles as well. And also, it was really nice to see for a tag team match, a lot of great singles battles as well, a lot of face-offs between individual members of each team, and it made you think, wow, these guys could have an excellent singles match too, and it would still be very good. Now, at certain points, I thought, you know what, maybe Ricochet and Black have a chance to win this, especially when at one point Aleister Black hit the Black Mass and it seemed like everything was done and dusted, but the War Raiders fought their way back into contention, and in the end did pick up the victory, hitting the fallout on Ricochet after hitting their previous double team finisher on him as well. They hit two big moves in succession with Aleister Black incapacitated on the outside. It was really well done. It was an impactful finish, but also a tactical one with them isolating one member of the team. I've also forgotten an insane spot from earlier on as well, where both War Raiders were covering Ricochet to make the pinfall. That looked like it was potentially going to be the end of the match, although it was quite early on. And then Aleister Black, in the nick of time, came off with a huge double foot stomp from the top rope onto the backs of both War Raiders, and it was like, that was really well timed, that was really close, it could have easily gone wrong. But yes, as I just mentioned, the War Raiders were able to pick up the victory with the fallout, and it looked kind of nasty actually. I hope Ricochet is okay, because immediately when he was down, there were a lot of like officials and medical staff in the ring checking on him, referees and stuff, and the camera didn't really hone in on that, so you could tell it wasn't part of the plan. It was kind of just a precaution, I guess. I really hope he isn't injured. I hope he can still compete at WrestleMania, because after this performance, he absolutely deserves it. All four men in this match were really good, and afterwards as well, it was really nice to see Ricochet and Aleister Black soaking in the applause from the crowd. Their big NXT send-off, it was very emotional. Ricochet actually was brought to tears by it. It was an amazing moment. Aleister Black wasn't though, because he's the sinister man from Amsterdam, and he doesn't cry. He's just moody, isn't he? But yes, a really nice send-off for both the guys. At one point during this send-off, I thought that Aleister Black might attack Ricochet for losing the match for them, but he didn't, which I think was the right call, especially with Ricochet hopefully being fit to compete alongside Aleister at WrestleMania. And they just went off to the back, and it was a really emotional high point to start off the show. Next up, we had the North American title match between Velveteen Dream and Matt Riddle. Again, a very good match. I wouldn't say quite as good as the opener, but it was a very high bar to live up to straight away, and it was still really good. And the good thing about this show especially was that all the matches were good in a different sort of way. It was really good. It was a really good example of how to put on a show where each match has a different, distinct sort of style. So the opener was fast, kind of spotty, really frantic and really well paced. And this second match, Matt Riddle and Velveteen Dream, a little bit more technical at parts. It actually started off like an amateur wrestling contest with both men looking for takedowns and that sort of thing. And Matt Riddle really obviously getting the better of those exchanges. I shouldn't forget to mention as well that Velveteen Dream came out dressed as the Statue of Liberty, because of course he did. Velveteen Dream has so much charisma and presence and pageantry that honestly his entrances are a highlight of any takeover. It's a part of a takeover that I look forward to almost as much as all of the matches as well. But Velveteen Dream fought his way back into the match, and he had a few moments of like a big comeback, and there was a really interesting and fluid dynamic here. So it started off with Dream being the cocky, smug champion, I guess, and with no definitive babyface in the match, one of them had to assume the heel role. And in the first half of the match, it looked like that heel was going to be Velveteen Dream. But then, as the match progressed and Velveteen Dream kept surviving everything that Riddle threw at him, Riddle kept getting increasingly frustrated. He'd hold on to submissions a little bit too long, he'd attack Velveteen Dream while the referee was trying to get him away and that sort of thing, and it was really interesting and cool to see. And as well, Matt Riddle's facial expressions were absolutely on point. You could see him gradually inching closer and closer to a full-blown heel turn as this match went on. Eventually, it looked as though Matt Riddle did have the match won, locking in the Bro Mission, but then Velveteen Dream was able to roll backwards into a pinning predicament, kind of very similar actually to how Kairi Sane took the NXT Women's Championship from Shayna Baszler, before Shayna obviously won it back at a later date. It was pretty much that same finish, rolling out of a submission, and the submission's still locked on, but the wrestler on the bottom doesn't let go of it in time and is pinned because, you know, of their own greed. They're not willing to let go of the submission. Really good stuff. Riddle again had excellent facial expressions here. He looked shocked and just devastated that this younger upstart with less fighting skill than him had somehow managed to eke out a victory and retain his championship. And then after the match, this was right. So when Ricochet and Aleister Black were in the ring and everyone was applauding them after they'd lost, I think me thinking, oh, Black's going to turn on Ricochet, that was just a bit of wrestling fan paranoia on my part. But when Matt Riddle and Velveteen Dream was squaring off after their match, that was very much the intended plan from NXT. They wanted us to think Matt Riddle's about to go crazy here and beat the crap out of Velveteen Dream. And he didn't, but he came this close to doing so. So in the end, the two bumped fists and Matt Riddle headed to the back, but it's planted that seed of the idea of a heel Matt Riddle in everyone's mind. And if he does turn heel in the near future, he is going to look dangerous as hell, and I do hope it happens, and I can't wait to see what happens if it does. Then, in between this match and the next, we had the now traditional let's introduce the new NXT signing segment. That person was Kushida from New Japan, of course, and he just looked delighted to be there, and the crowd were delighted to see him as well. Huge pop for Kushida. Everyone was absolutely buzzing to see him, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do. He was the only new face in the crowd, but there were a few notable figures popping up in between matches here and there. We had Toni Storm, Piper Niven, or Viper as she was known, also Edge and Beth Phoenix as well. Beth Phoenix, of course, is wrestling at WrestleMania in the women's tag match alongside Natalya. Next up, whoa, let's talk about Walter versus Pete Dunne for the UK Championship. Oh my God. This was off the charts. For me, it's between this match and the main event for Match of the Night, and honestly, I think I may have to edge it to this match because not only was it brilliant, but it was unique in why it was brilliant. This was such a fusion of old school wrestling with two men battering each other. This was such a stiff match, and the new school of kind of faster paced sequences and that sort of thing, but at the right time throughout the match, they really ground the pace to a halt, not in a boring way, not at all. In fact, it actually made the match more compelling. You were just forever waiting to see what the next big hit was going to be. And when I say big hit, especially those dealt by Walter to Pete Dunne, there were some big hits. This was a hard-hitting match. Put it this way, I wouldn't like to be in Pete Dunne's shoes right now. Now the adrenaline of the match is worn off, he's probably a very sore individual. Walter was hitting him with obviously thunderous chops, but pretty much every strike that these two laid on each other was laid in thick. Hard forearms, boots right to the face, huge slams and that sort of thing. I've just remembered at one point Walter giving him a powerbomb from the corner, but not just a powerbomb, like a release one, just basically chucked Pete Dunne halfway across the ring. Pete Dunne here did a stellar job of putting over Walter as the next huge threat in the UK division. And that was pretty much the story of the match. Like, Pete Dunne was dominated here for large sections of the bout. He did get significant moments of offense, especially when he'd be breaking Walter's fingers, which you could argue actually, and it's what prevents the match from getting a perfect 5 stars for me, although it's very, very close. I think there were too many finger breaking spots. I've seen a few comments of people suggesting the same. I did feel like it kind of took away from it, but Walter was always sure, every time he chopped Pete Dunne after that, to sell the hand and go like, oh, this is really hurting me. I just feel like maybe they went to the well one too many times with the finger breaks. I don't know, it's very much a matter of personal opinion. But that was very much the only complaint I had. And yeah, you know, even though Walter dominated large stretches of this match, Pete Dunne did have flashes of offense. Not just the finger breaks, but also moments where he'd like lock Walter's head to the canvas and just stomp on the head again. Very, very stiff, very scary looking. There were moments where like it seemed as though one guy would take a beating and just get knocked out of the ring and then struggle and claw their way back in the ring. Do the same to the other guy, they would struggle and crawl. The way I'm describing it is nowhere near as thrilling as it actually was. This was awesome, really intense stuff, really, really good. You need to watch it to understand why it was good. I think it was quite strange in that sort of way, but it felt at times like watching a real fight. It was absolutely brilliant. And yes, as many people predicted in the lead up to this, it was Walter who eventually ended Pete Dunne's mammoth reign with the United Kingdom Championship. The final move, the final nail in the coffin, was a humongous splash from the top rope. But honestly, I think any move could have ended this after the beating that both guys gave each other. Really good stuff. At one point, Pete Dunne gave Walter the bitter end, and it was a thing to behold. Him hoisting this giant man into the air, flipping him round and drilling him into the canvas. But yeah, I mean, the star of the show has to be Walter. A really selfless performance from Pete Dunne, putting over his opponent and making him look like a beast. And I'm sure that whatever Pete Dunne goes on to do next, maybe the main NXT roster, he's going to excel. But right now, this was Walter's night, man. He looked like an absolute monster. Next up, the four-way women's match for the NXT Women's Championship. So we had the champion Shayna Baszler, who was accompanied during her entrance by Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir, but they didn't actually interfere in the match itself, which was good to see, I think. We also had Io Shirai, Kairi Sane, and Bianca Belair. This was really well positioned in the card. We just had a brutal, kind of slower paced, hard-hitting match between Pete Dunne and Walter, and now in this women's match, we had a more faster paced, more frantic action kind of thing, but also, I think more kind of a nice, this is going to sound really wrong, not a break before a longer main event, but a nice change of pace. This match wasn't by any means a match that you could have a break and miss out on. It was still really, really good. It was just a nice change up, preparing everybody for another long, grueling match in the end of the show. But I really enjoyed this match too. I can't really pick what the weakest match on the card would have been because it's between Matt Riddle versus Velveteen Dream and this one, but they were both really good too. Every match on this show for me was 4 stars or above, which just goes to show what a consistently solid show it was throughout. Now the story here was that the Sky Pirates were working together, and when they were on the same page, they were dominating Shayna and Bianca. The other two couldn't keep up with them, and it looked as though one of the two Japanese stars was going to take the victory and the title. But then things turned when Sane broke up Io Shirai's pinfall, where it looked as though she was going to pick up the victory. Then Shirai did the same, breaking up one of Sane's pinfalls, and then they took each other kind of out of the match, and it was down to Baszler and Bianca Belair. And again, they did a really good job of teasing that Belair might actually get the victory, but eventually in the end, actually, because Sane and Shirai had been taken out of contention, Baszler was able to clamp her Kirifuda clutch on Bianca Belair, and despite almost reaching the ropes, she did succumb to the submission, she did tap out, and Shayna Baszler is still the NXT Women's Champion. Who's going to take that title from her? I don't know. I honestly don't know. But whoever it is, in a similar way to Pete Dunne and Walter, whoever it is going to look absolutely great as a result. And finally, let's talk about that main event. Bloody hell. 2 out of 3 falls, Johnny Gargano versus Adam Cole for the vacant NXT Championship. It would have been nice, of course it would have, to see Gargano versus Champa once again, this time with hopefully Gargano finally defeating Champa, winning the title and avenging all the wrong things that Champa did to him in the build-up. Sadly, it wasn't to be because of Ciampa's surgery, and that's just the way it goes in wrestling sometimes, but Adam Cole was more than a worthy replacement, and both men put in so much effort into this match, it was insane. Way over half an hour long, I think it was nearer 40 minutes actually, and it was quite a display of stamina, pacing, storytelling, excellent in-ring work, everything you want it to be. It was fantastic. And yes, with it being 2 out of 3 falls, it did start a little bit slowly, and for quite a bit of this match I was thinking, it's really good, but it's not as good as I thought it was going to be. But by the end I was like, that was brilliant. So the first fall was won by Adam Cole, who hit the running knee, exposing, rolling down the knee pad, exposing his knee, drilling Gargano in the back of the head, and picking up the first pinfall, so Gargano had to come back from behind to win. Sensible booking, maybe a little bit predictable, but that's kind of the thing you want to go for if you're telling this sort of story, I think, so I agree with that. Then Gargano was able to fight his way back in, won the second fall with the Gargano escape, and it was really interesting to see just how quickly Adam Cole tapped out to that. It wasn't to do with him looking weak or anything like that. It was more strategic. It was him trying to like preserve his energy, not get too hurt before that final decisive fall. And what a final fall it was. Both men throwing absolutely everything at each other. There was one sequence where they both just hit each other with the same move like 4 or 5 times, culminating in a big double super kick which knocked them both on their backs. Great stuff. At one point, Gargano really tempted fate. I think this might have been during the previous fall actually, but it looked like he was going to get a count-out victory over Cole and level the scores, but instead he rolled back out the ring and got Cole back in, and I was thinking, Johnny, this is going to be your downfall. Every time you're too nice, you don't win. Every time you're too heelish, you don't win. Just compete, win the match, win the belt, and fulfill your damn destiny. I was getting really, really into this. But you know what? Johnny Gargano stuck to his guns. He was fully babyface once again. He came out dressed as Iron Man, for God's sake. And in that final fall, you could argue that he kicked out too much. Adam Cole blasted him with so many moves, but I think in rare circumstances, and this was one of them, that's allowed. The babyface is allowed to really draw on all their reserves of resilience and kick out when maybe under normal circumstances you'd go, that's a little bit unbelievable. So after surviving, you know, knees to the head, and Ushigoroshis, and I think it's called the Panama Sunset, the jump off the middle rope into the Canadian Destroyer. After surviving all of that, Gargano locked on the Gargano escape and Adam Cole tapped out, but the referee had been distracted by the bloody Undisputed Era, and that's when I thought, oh no, Cole's going to get a heelish win after giving the visual submission to Gargano, and that's a bit too predictable for my liking, and I was quite disappointed. It was a double bluff. That's not what happened at all. Johnny Gargano fought off single-handedly all 3 other members of the Undisputed Era, and it wasn't even unbelievable. He was just using his ingenuity. He was jumping off the apron, kicking one guy, DDTing another. It was like something from the Matrix, but it was great. Then he would get back, I've just said, it was believable. It was like something from the Matrix, which I understand makes no sense, but it worked if you watch it. And eventually Gargano did isolate Cole back in the ring once again and lock on the Gargano escape, and it looked as though Cole was going to reach that bottom rope, but then in a classic, big, dramatic, babyface finish, Gargano rolled him back into the center of the ring without releasing the hold, and Adam Cole tapped out, and finally, Johnny Gargano is NXT champion. And the celebration afterwards was another thing entirely. Again, fantastic. Candice LeRae joined in, celebrated with her husband in the ring. Then Johnny went and found his family in the front row and just stood on a chair at one point amongst the people, just basking in their applause, and it was like, it was real. It felt real. The emotion, I think, from Gargano was actually real. And then Candice and Johnny made their way up to the ramp. The signature hit the bottom of the screen, and you know who came out next. That's right, Tommaso Ciampa walked out slowly onto the stage with a neck brace on, of course, because he's just had neck surgery, but the atmosphere was very different. He didn't attack Gargano, he didn't throw him into the Tron or hit him with a crutch. There was just a big embrace at the top of the ramp, and it was a genuinely lovely moment. These two have told such a compelling story in NXT. The 3 of them as well, Candice included too. They've told such a compelling story, and it was so nice to see Ciampa actually congratulate his nemesis Gargano after such an excellent match, and a great culmination to a story that could have gone really wrong because of Ciampa's injury, but they pulled it around, and it was great, and it was emotional, and it was brilliant, and it was the perfect ending to a really wonderful NXT TakeOver. So that was it. That's what happened at NXT TakeOver New York. What was match of the night? I'm still torn between that main event and between Walter and Pete Dunne. At the moment, I'm going to go with my head and edge it to Pete and Walter as the better in-ring match, but as far as moments go, there's no comparing with Johnny Gargano finally lifting the NXT Championship. Wonderful stuff, and yes, join myself and Sam tomorrow as we do it all again for the G1 Supercard. Oh, alright, cheers for watching. I'm gonna go to bed. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.